Canggu has been known as the playground for the young, beautiful, and digitally free for the last few years. Full of co-working spaces, beautiful rice fields, beaches with waves that beckon surfers daily, and some of the best and healthiest restaurants anywhere in the world. However, this once under-the-radar beachside town has exploded in popularity and seems to be following the same fate as other overhyped destinations like Tulum and Ibiza. Hey friends, it's been so long since my last video, and if you are an avid watcher of this channel, of which there are precious few, you might notice that the backdrop here has changed significantly. I've upgraded my life a lot, and in this video I'm going to talk about how that happened, basically, in short, by leaving Canggu. Now, Canggu is known, famous as the #1 digital nomad destination in the world, and I'll be honest, that's what attracted me to living there as well for the almost 2 years that I did live in Canggu. But just last week I finally left Canggu and I moved into this giant, beautiful house in a neighborhood I'm going to tell you about. I'm saving this home tour for once I'm finished my redecoration because there's a lot of work that's happening to that, and I think it will be really fun to do a reveal. But in this video today, I'm going to talk specifically about whether I think Canggu is kind of over as a destination for expat digital nomads in 2021 or maybe even 2022 by the time borders actually open in Bali. If you haven't actually been to Bali and don't know what I'm talking about, Canggu refers to the little beachside community on the southwestern coast. It comprises a few main roads leading down to the beach, as well as the main thoroughfare, Jalan Raya Canggu, which is almost always congested with traffic, but more on that later. Let me first talk about some of the things that I loved about Canggu and what originally drew me to there. So I'm going to start with a little story. The first time I came to Bali was 5 years ago, and I had never even heard of Canggu. A friend just told me to go to Ubud. I was really into yoga at that time, really into the kind of spiritual crowd, so Ubud was perfect for me. I went to Ubud and I went down towards Uluwatu, the very, very south of the island. Those were the only two places that I visited. So flash forward a few years when I actually decided that I wanted to make the move to Bali. I still had really fond memories of Ubud, and that's where I knew, so I decided that I was going to go and move to Ubud. I had an apartment, it was okay, but maybe it was a little bit too country for me because there were roosters all around my house. You can watch that video. What happened one day though was a girl invited me to go to Canggu. I had never been before. All I knew basically was that it was kind of like a surfer, more, I guess, hip kind of place, and I had maybe some prejudice against it for that reason. But I was shocked when I went to Canggu for the first time, and you can watch that video of, I did a vlog of something like an Ubudian visits Canggu for the first time. I really just fell in love because compared to Ubud, it felt so much more open. There were tons of cool cafes and restaurants. It felt more laid back. In Ubud, I felt kind of like the streets were closing in on me. It just felt very congested and like I couldn't breathe there actually. So I had a great day that day in Canggu, and I finished the day at La Brisa, which is a beach club, and watching the sunset from the beach was just wonderful. And I thought, what am I doing in Ubud? This is where I need to be. Shortly thereafter, I moved to Canggu, and I was there for the last year and a half, 2 years. And very recently, I moved, and I'm so happy with this move for so many reasons. Basically, let's get into the problems that I'm starting to see with Canggu and why I left and why others might want to consider somewhere else to live if you're coming to Bali. So for me, the biggest thing that's happening right now in the actual Canggu area is just how congested it is. Even now, during coronavirus, when there's hypothetically no tourists, there are still traffic jams on Jalan Raya Canggu, which is the main kind of road that goes through the town. And I'm someone who, like I think almost everybody, the traffic just gets to me, especially when it's hot outside and it's smoggy and you're on a motorbike. It's a big pain. Another thing that I think is the biggest factor for me leaving Canggu is that, to be honest, and I'm just going to say it straight, I don't care who this offends, it's become too douchey. So the expression in Indonesian for foreigners is bule, and Canggu is basically Buleville. You feel like you could be in Ibiza or in Tulum And you know, that might appeal to some people. That appeals to obviously the international kind of jet set crowd who want to be surrounded only by other foreigners. But I don't consider myself a digital nomad, and I consider myself more an expat at this point. I've lived outside of my country, the United States, for 5 years now in various places, and I've been in Bali now for over 2 years. I speak a decent level of Indonesian, so I feel much more integrated than Canggu is, where, as I said, you go down the street and it's pretty much all foreigners. Now, obviously that has some good sides to it as well, because Canggu is full of great restaurants and cafes that cater to that Western type of crowd and sensibility. So that is one thing that I'll miss about leaving that area, is just the proximity that I had to those things. But the type of people that are attracted to living in Canggu, I just feel like they're not my people. There's a lot of Russians who don't have the best reputation, let's be honest, in Bali. And then I guess a lot of sort of digital nomads, a lot of surfers, a lot of people who are out drinking. I feel like they're sort of lost souls. Again, not my crowd. I don't really go out. I don't drink much, except if I'm gonna have a very, chilled glass of dry white wine overlooking somewhere beautiful, or a glass of champagne. I'm not looking to get shit-faced out at the lawn on a Friday night, or the other places where people go in Canggu to drink and hook up. It's just, that's not for me. So I kind of started to wonder, well, what am I doing here? These aren't my people. And the thing is that Canggu has also become really overpriced because of the hype, and people know Canggu as the destination to be in Bali. The rents became so expensive. So if you remember my last home, of which I did the home tour, I was paying 100 million rupiah per year for that place. And that was a cute place, and it included maintenance and staff, and it had a pool, and it was nice, but it was very small. It was a 1-bedroom, had a tiny kitchen, and I felt like after 10 months there, claustrophobic. I needed more space. And even to renew my contract for another year, which was coming up, it was going to still increase in price, maybe to 105 or 110. Actually, in the contract that I had negotiated when I signed, it was going to be 110 million, but then obviously the coronavirus has still continued, and the owner really likes me. He would have cut me a deal, but that's not really the point. I had already kind of had in my mind that I wanted to look elsewhere, and as I began my search for a new villa, I expanded the areas that I thought that I wanted to live in, because prior I was confining myself really to Canggu, 2 neighborhoods specifically that are a little bit less overcrowded, but nonetheless still in Canggu. And when I found this current villa that I moved into last week in a neighborhood called Kerobokan.
Hold up for just 1 second. Just for clarification, it's not like I moved to the other side of the island. I only moved from here to here,
which is mostly expats and locals. For just a couple $1,000s more per year, I have about 10 times more space. I'm in an incredible 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. I want to give you the full tour, as I said, once it's decorated, but you can almost tell, I think, if you see behind me this Buddha that's reclining on my infinity pool. It's a major, major upgrade just by moving about 15 minutes, 20 minutes max from where I was. Now, another reason that I like this area and kind of was feeling over Canggu is that a lot of my life is centered out of Canggu. As I said, I'm not really socializing there, except for the few restaurants that I like. A lot of the things that I do are closer to where I live now. For example, I've become really obsessed with tennis over the last 6 months, and my tennis center is very close by here. My doctor is close by here. My dentist is close by. I'm only about 20 minutes from Denpasar, which is the main kind of commercial downtown of Bali, where, for example, if I want to go fabric shopping, or if I want to go to a camera store, or if I want to buy that type of stuff, that's where all of that is. And living in Canggu would add 15-20 minutes each way to that trip. Also, I'm closer to Kuta, which is kind of a disgusting area generally. It's like the Cancun of Bali. However, there is a decent mall there called Beach Walk, and so if I want to go shopping and pick up some things, you know, at Nike or whatever, then I'm closer to that as well. So I just feel like for the things that I'm actually doing on a day-to-day basis, my location now is a lot better for me. This obviously is coming from someone who has lived over 2 years in Bali and feels very integrated into life here. If you're coming as, let's say, a digital nomad or just a tourist, I think that Canggu obviously still has way more to offer you. You probably want to be in the mix of things. You want to be close to the bars and the beach clubs and all of that, and be close to the community, that particular community of people. As I said, I don't feel part of that community, which is why I'm happier to be outside of Canggu now. I think the biggest thing to consider also is that there are so many places in Bali to explore that are outside of just Ubud and Canggu. I think that, for example, the Uluwatu area is becoming really, really popular now with the kind of surf crowd that's over Canggu but wants to go somewhere that's a bit less traffic, a bit less congested. And I would also recommend just visiting the kind of unexplored places in Bali as well, the north that I love, Pamudran, for example, or you can go all the way east out to Ahmed and Karangasem. Get out of the little Canggu bubble and you'll find that Bali has so much more to offer. As I said, I'm thrilled to actually be out of Canggu now. Every time I need to go to Canggu for something, I feel like, oh, this is such a pain because there's going to be traffic and I have to go through that horrible shortcut that is infamous in Bali. As I said, luckily right now there is not a huge amount of traffic because it is still the pandemic time and nobody is coming into Bali. But I feel like I got out of Canggu really at the right time, because if Bali does plan to reopen in the next couple months and the tourists come flooding back in, it is going to be impossible. It's really hard to get a table in a restaurant when it's full of tourists, and I just don't want that. I really want to be in a low-key kind of place, and I feel like I found not my forever home, but I've found a home that I can be comfortable in now for quite some time. That's really all for this video. More to come, obviously. I'm so excited to give you a tour of my new home once it's finished. The redecoration is also a really fun thing for me to do. I love shopping and I like to decorate things according to my taste, and I feel like this giant house is sort of almost an empty canvas for me to play with and customize and make my own. Thank you for watching this video. I hope everyone is doing well wherever you are in the world, and until next time, take care. See you later.